Hi, welcome to another video of the philosophy/politics series I'm putting out on YouTube. And in this video, we're going to be talking about Slavoj Zizek. What does he do? What type of philosopher is he? What is his methodology? And so on and so on. I think Slavoj Zizek is one of the most repetitive, but at the same time, one of the most interesting writers to engage with. Why is this? Because his methodology, I think, is very constant. Essentially, what he does is he takes a piece of art, piece of cultural, symbol. He makes an allegory for it in real life and how that compares to a real life predicament, as he calls it. And then after that, he gives the liberal left-wing interpretation for that allegory. And then he argues against that left-wing liberal interpretation and then gives his Hegelian, Lacanian take on it. I think this way of looking at things, this allegorical understanding, is exactly why he's so famous for making jokes. You really shouldn't watch Slavoj Zizek Most Racist Jokes compilation on YouTube, because it doesn't really help you understand what he's trying to say. After every joke he makes, it's not just a piece of entertainment, it's also trying to deliver a point, a cultural commentary, a critique, as I may call it. And he's often successful with that. Sometimes he makes very big stretches, and to tie up the connections is very hard, but sometimes it's very obvious and very easy to understand. Which brings me to another point. He is, I think, I really like the way he engages with philosophy in general. He tries to balance accessibility with genuine depth, if that makes sense. He's not really, when he gives lectures, it's not really like watching a university lecture of a philosopher or a professor talking about a certain topic. It's more accessible than that. And one of the ways in which that comes across is through jokes, right? Jokes. He's very entertaining. He keeps you attached, keeps you listening. And even though he does that, he doesn't do it by becoming a PragerU video about Rousseau. It's not that simplified. It doesn't bug you when you listen to it. It doesn't repeat everything you know. No, it's actually introducing new thoughts to you from a relatively unknown species of philosophers, let's call it that. Hegel before Zizek wasn't even spoken of, I think, in my opinion. It was always Kant before Hegel. Now that Zizek is around, Lacan and Hegel have become more and more, talked about in academia and on media at the same time. So I think that's a very big success of Zizek's, ontological project. There's a lot of criticisms against him. One is that, which comes from Chomsky, which I find very ironic. He says Zizek is, and likes of Zizek, this is a criticism against postmodernism. Just postmodernist authors are saying kind of these fancy words. They're trying to look cool with, scientific references, but at the same time, they're not really talking about anything. And I think this is a very pathetic criticism. If you don't understand what somebody's talking about, I don't think it's fair to say that they're not talking about anything. I guess it would make more sense to criticize the real life impact that these philosophies are having in our daily lives. But no, Chomsky is essentially making the point that it just doesn't make sense. They're just making fancy sounds and they think this jargon is very intellectual. No, I don't buy into it. Another criticism comes from the predominant academia of left, which go by this understanding of subject-oriented ontology, whereas Zizek is object-oriented ontology. How does that come about? I've been reading this book that he wrote about reading Hegel, and he talks about Judith Butler. I think is a perfect example of the subject-oriented philosophy that we have going on. And it's a succession from Deleuze and Guattari, anti-Oedipus stuff, until it arrives at today's predominant left. The way Zizek engages with these guys is, I think, in a very comical manner. One example is how, he quotes Judith Butler and her analysis of Hegel in his book, and he dedicates 2 pages for that, which is quite an uncommon thing to do. Nonetheless, Judith Butler is making the point that because of the way absolute knowing works, to hurt a human being is to hurt humanity as a whole, which is against the liberal principle, a very enlightened way of looking at it. I'm simplifying it too much, but you get the gist of it. And the way Hegel engages with this is, what about Hitler? That's exactly what he says in a comical manner. If we hurt Hitler, do we hurt the general line of united humanity? No, we don't, according to him at least. I agree with him. And he actually likes just I don't want to say flirting with this imagery of fascism, but engaging with it, using it as an example, because it's just such an extreme case. It negates all the subject-oriented philosophy that the left advocates for. Well, the predominant academic left advocates for. So he instead focuses on object-oriented philosophy, which disregards subject as a kind of this valuable substance, because his philosophy of subject is that it's a void in reality. It's the negation of being, almost, if that makes sense. It is everything that makes up him, around him, but at the same time nothing that makes it up around it. I'm probably speaking jargon to you if you haven't read Zizek, and I'm probably simplifying it too much if you have read Zizek. So this is not really helping. But you understand his methodology, right? I think the way he engages with different authors, mostly the ones that are most close to him, he has a very friendly voice towards them. He calls Judith Butler a not yet Hegelian, which I find very entertaining. They're, according to him anyway, close friends. They engage quite a bit in academia. Judith Butler also responds to Zizek, and there's this friendly interchange. It's not always so friendly with other authors, especially the likes of Chomsky. But anyhow, I think that's Zizek for you. I don't know if there's more I can say that would divert this from being just an introductory way of engaging with Zizek. I told you what to expect, his methodology essentially, and his ideas are so much more complex than I can engage with in a single video. So for the purposes of this video, I think I said all I could, and you stay in tune. Take care.